Welcome to Impressionist Painting with Knife, Bluebell Forest. I so look forward to painting this particular scene based on this particular study, showing you the difference, what it looks like, what the same scene looks like when it's in the shadow, the sunlight. So some of those oranges, you can see that they come alive, and then if it's in the shadow, then they sort of go to sleep. But the contrast between the white and the dark becomes more prominent in the shadow. And then I bring it back up into the light, and all of a sudden those gorgeous colors come alive again. All my oranges and my yellows are highly visible. Vastly different. The exact same study, if you look at it, it looks very, very different in the shadow. The colors look different. All those warm yellowy greens and oranges and yellows and even the reds, they are sort of asleep. And then you bring them out into the sun. Okay, yeah, the camera does adjust a little bit, but you see that the colors essentially come alive. Now that's the same effect that you will have on your artwork when it's done. How to paint a bluebell forest using just 3 colors. I'm going to work from my studies that I have done outdoors in Petswood, just scampering around, walking the dog, and looking at nature, sometimes sitting down on a log and doing a sketch such as this. I looked at some other pages in the same sketchbook, and I saw a couple of other inspiring sheets here that I love that pink over there, and also these lilac-y sky colors. They are very reminiscent of that fresh spring atmosphere that you see in the forest, and also these almost angry dark greens. They are fantastic. Now, of course, these are a very hazy sketch of the bluebells, the patches of bluebells at my feet. And just to remind myself, I have added just 1 dab of that light blue to remind me that anything that is sunlit is going to have that sort of a color. I made sure that I exaggerated the color of the trees, so that, of course, I know trees are not violet and trees are not orange, but why would you paint them with boring browns if you have gorgeous colors at your disposal? So when you do a sketch, it's basically about grabbing the atmosphere, grabbing some of the lines, some of the, like here you see I haven't even finished. It's pretty much some of these trees. It is around that same area. And then I started adding a bit of white gouache to my blues, just to remind myself, because I'm working on a toned paper here. And then this is something by one of the ponds. You see these patches of vibrant colors in the midst of everything else. So these are notes. Think of your sketchbook as a notebook, in fact, but you are taking notes of the colors. You are taking notes of the patterns and features that you see. I absolutely love the tree, and I painted it from the top looking down towards the pond. From various angles I painted it because I love it. It reminds me that whatever storm turns you out of the ground, you feel like you can barely hang on with your little finger to the ground and get some nutrition. Still, you can keep growing with whatever branches you have left. Then I have just these couple of patches, these couple of white dots you see. Depending on what type of tree we are talking about, some of them already started bringing up some light green leaves, which are fantastic against the pink of the sky. So I'm going to exaggerate in my painting as well, but you cannot exaggerate if you are working from just photos. It's very difficult to get colors out of a photograph, even a set of photographs. So especially for landscapes, it's extremely important to get into the habit of sketching. So bring a sketchbook. It doesn't have to be a fancy one, just anything really to grab those motifs and take a note. And this is another patch. It's basically those right behind there are those same trees that you see here. So I'm taking a look up at hill on this scene. 2 roads running together, and that's just a phenomenal patch of bluebells. Also mingled, they mix up with wild garlic to whatever color schemes you see, and make sure that you, yeah, just work from that. Yeah, this is another one. Again, these are all studies I have done on the spot. Yeah, I love this. I really love the colors of this. It wouldn't be bad to have some of the bluebells underneath there. Okay, so my primary reference is going to be this sketch. And first I need to start by selecting the 3 colors that I want to work with. And I need to have the right 3 colors. 3 colors plus white, okay? This is a cyan. So what I will do here is blue. I want to use warm yellow, PBO Studio. So the Studio range, it is something designed for people who are just learning how to paint. It's different from what Liquitex Professional. This is a lot more expensive. You don't really need professional colors. And then Kryla, Artists, Acrylics. Again, Artists is something that you can work with. What I will do here is spray my paper, a very simple printing paper. I'm going to start with my warm color here because I need a lot more warm color, and I need a lot more. This is the lightest color that I have here. And then I want to see what is the range that I can create with this. That's actually quite nice. I want to see what all this can do with some white. So just a bit of a curiosity, because I will have some pastel colors here and I want to know what my pastel colors are. I think that's going to be okay. And then I want to know my purples. Let's get to know my purples here. And not just my purple, but also, because we are talking about bluebells, I want to know if I can actually mix the right bluebell color using my crimson and my blue here. And I think that's okay. I can have a bit of a sunlit bluebells. Yeah, I think those will be okay. Making sure that I don't use any dirty fingers for the oranges. I want to know if I can mix some nice warm oranges, and of course I can. And they're lighter tints. I think I'm happy with this, and comparing my color wheel with my palette here, I'm actually happy. I think some of those violets will need sprucing up, so I will need to be careful to have some nice violets there, but otherwise it's okay. So here are my 3 colors, and I'm going to mix the first color for my canvas, and actually I will be working on a watercolor paper, but looking at what I have here, I will have quite a bit of this warm yellowy, green yellow, orange, red colors, and my flowers are blue. So it is a very lilac-y, almost like a purpley blue that I have here. I'm going to start with a very thin wash of a gentle lilac in the background. It shouldn't be very strong. I think that will be a good one. I would love to have an even lighter tint, just a gentle one, and a bit more on the red side. Yeah, I think that will be good. So starting with some water and a wet sponge, which is just a third of a kitchen sponge. There you go. I'm doing these little dabs because at the same time, once I got rid of most of the white here, I want to create a map, a plan for my artwork. I'm going to have a jungle on the left-hand side, right there. And I'm going to have a jungle somewhere here, as well as in the back. I'm going to lose sight of the sky. You know, I'm just dabbing it on just to make sure that I see where I'm going with this. There is a decent balance of these big blobs of colors that I'm going to add. And also big blocks of just everything that grows here. So, okay. I'm going to have something there. There are 2 trees there. And I'm using the edge of the sponge here. So this fairly sharp edge, just gently. And I'm not drawing the tree. I'm just doing a very quick sort of a sketch, because I want to, as I zoom out and I look at my artwork, every single time I work on something, I'm sort of zooming in on that, and then I'm zooming out as I take a look at it, like, does this as a composition, will it stand? Will it be okay? I will see if I want to get rid of this tree later on or not. There is something here, and then this tree that is just growing out of the foreground at an angle. Now, when you have a strong line such as this, you have to be careful with it, because it's easy to send the viewer out of the picture by just following that line. So I love that tree over there, but I'm going to be gentle with how much of that I'm going to paint. So I don't want to have a strong contrast or a strong dark line or anything like that sending the viewer off. I want to have some, you know, there's some sort of a jungle feel here. And then, yeah, because the sun is coming from the left, there will be some cast shadows on the ground, as well as on the right-hand side of everything will be a cooler color. When you work like the Impressionists did, when you understand colors like they did, then you will see that instead of working darker, you will be using just cooler colors, generally cooler colors. And this is already a cool color that I'm working with. This alizarin crimson is just a very nice, cool color. Sort of, yeah, I want to lose the viewer over there. You want to add a couple of knuckles on the trees. It's really nice to have trees that you can see that they sort of broke off, or there's a nest somewhere up in the air. You just hint at these things. You don't, if you paint them all the way to the great detail, you are going to bore the viewer. Just make sure you don't do that. Okay, have I gotten rid of all my whites? There's a bit of white over there, but I think I'm fine. Now, the system I use is working from color to color around my palette. Now, when you work around your palette, you can go either this direction towards the oranges and the yellow and then the greens, and then come back to the blues and add the bluebells and, you know, everything on top. Or you can start working this way. Start with your violets, everything that's in the shadow, all the chilly clouds in the background, you can place them with the violets. And then you can work around towards the blues, a little bit of blue. Don't add the bluebells yet. Just add maybe a bit of a sky with a, you know, something like that. If you want to, you can, you don't have to. And then you go over to your greens, yellow greens, everything, all the various greens you have, and then you come back through your violets and reds to your purples and add the bluebells basically. The system is just that you go one direction or the other direction and you place everything that you need on the painting. Okay, I'm going to go towards the warm round because I want to establish that nice warm background. Having a lot of red on my sponge, and I'm making that warm reddish glow that I have on right behind the trunk of that tree over there. So I want to create a bit of that warm glow. Then I have a little bit more of that same warm glow right here in the front. This will go layer by layer, so don't be too precious about any of these lines, any of these base coats. You are just creating a general map for you to work on later on. Light green will look very nice on that. And I think I will move the tree a little bit either to the right or to the left. Yeah. Okay, I like this warm orange. I will be adding a little bit of the warmth to the tree trunks as well. After all, they are sunlit, so there will be a warmer side to them from the left. I'm working from a picture that is very, very horizontally, like just one of these pages would be enough. I'm crunching the whole scene together, or if you wish, you could think of it as I'm adding all the top, you know, the sky that is missing, but some of them will be crunched into this scene and some of that will be missing at my feet here. So all of that I'm thinking of as I go. Once you are with a certain color, you might as well dip your sponge into white and add a warmer version of that. So just see how that sunlit tree trunk effect will come out against the darks. I like that. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. And there will be some lighter colors here. Now I'm moving on to my green. And I just pick up the blue with my yellow sponge, the sponge that has all that yellow on it. This happens to be very much of a Lego green, which I'm not crazy about. That's the one green that I try to move away from. So try to make it either more of a yellow or more of a blue. And then I would much rather have the viewer mix it in their eye, in their mind. I like that. And now you see what happens with the green, that as soon as you add the green on top of your red base, any red, orange, pink type of base coat or underpainting, those greens will look hyper green. I don't want to add all the details. It's just a bit of a reminder for myself for later on as I work that those are green. And now I pick up some of the blue, and this is going to be very much of a turquoise. Now turquoise is what green looks like that's in the shadow, especially if your eyes are jumping from sunlit part of a bush to the bits and parts that are in the shadow. And this is now very strong, very bold. It really stands out. I will probably want to tone it down. And how about some lighter turquoise? So I just pick up a bit of white with the same sponge and basically add it. And as soon as I do that, now there are 3 different types of greens. It's like 3 different singers, all of them singing in a slightly different. Imagine that singers singing the same song, but it's like 3 different harmonies. And that's how I think of these colors, that yes, all of them are green. We have the very warm yellow green. We have the very cool, deep, almost blue turquoise, which you can see that it's green just because I placed it on top of my reds and oranges. And then you have a lighter turquoise. All of these, all of them are green, but stretching it out, it makes it less boring, just like singers having a slightly different harmony, each one of them singing a different harmony. Then I'm moving around, I'm just picking up my sponge with this dark violet, and I will be adding the shadowy part of the tree, because you have that. And I'm going to add a bit more of those shadows there, yeah. And then of course I pick up my white and just testing it against my existing colors here. How will those bluebells look? And I think they will look great, but I'm going to add them last, almost last. Maybe I will add a little bit here just to remind myself. Yeah, I think that will look okay. All right, so this is my first layer, my map. This is what I will be working on. I have everything here that will remind me of what I'm after. The only thing I will need to keep in mind, or actually I will have this one right nearby so I can look back at it. The wild garlic here is something that I'm going to dab on in the last minute. But yeah, I think otherwise it looks okay to me. Cleaning my palette knife, make sure that I work with a clean knife. It's the first layer. So the first layer will be the sky behind everything. And this is the layer when you can also sort of move back in between and adjust some of those patterns for the trees. You can make them quirkier. You can break up those big clumps of orange that, or you know, any other color. If you're like here, that sponge mark is way too wide, I'm going to make it thinner, sort of break it up. The knife creating this very thin, very gentle and very broken effects that you have here. So you want to have these broken effects. That's what makes palette knife painting interesting. And also notice I'm not being precious about painting over some of these sponge marks. So anything you have painted with the sponge, it's okay to smudge it over, paint it over, get rid of it. It's totally fine. one more thing, I'm going to pick up a little bit of my blue here and create just a tiny bit of a bluey sky. Not everywhere, but some places. And I'm not covering any of those, like, I'm not covering the entire pinky sky there. I'm just adding a bit of a lighter note, light blue specifically. And it is mixing up with the orange behind, it's mixing up with the reds. It's making it more interesting. And I will need a bit of a sunlit something down there, so it's totally fine to break it up a little bit. Now, one of the things you might notice here is that as I paint, the sun keeps coming and going outside, so my video might be changing. Don't, don't be disappointed by having, like right now, it's a much sunnier one than when I started to talk about this. But that's something that you notice, and then you start looking at your artwork in the shadow, in the sunshine, and you will see that different colors will come alive depending on what lights you are working under. Also, you notice if you do a couple of these swirly marks, then that will give a sense of a windy day. So now I've got the background. Next thing is going to be that orange blob. I'm going to create my bold, strong reds, oranges here. And I would just love to have this. Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's what I'm after. And some of that is going to be more over there. Oh, I love that. That's it. Yeah, you see, be bold. I'm quite happy with that. Now I need to pick up a bit of the white. I want to create a lighter yellow for some of these sunlit meadows, yeah, as well as some of them here. And a bit of a sunlit area over there. Now I'm going to move back to my orange and create a sunlit orange effect, which is almost a peachy color. It has a lot of white in it. So you will see that's the color. It's not exactly, well, actually I could have an even lighter version. Oh, I need more white. So I will be creating the sunlit effect on the tree trunk here. Broken twigs, as it sort of disappears into the sky. You see, I really don't want to lead the viewer out of the picture with anything that's very strong. No strong contrasts, especially not leading the viewer out of the picture. And anything that's a little bit like a patchy, broken thing, if you had something placed there fairly clearly with the same color, people will understand that that's the same object or something similar to what you painted before. And now I'm moving on to my light green here. I think I will need to go back over this with an even lighter green, but you know, that's okay. Okay. And I'm back full circle to my blues now. This is roughly the time when I would be thinking, like, do I add? I think I will be adding, yeah. After all, this is just a very quick demo. I will be adding, and I don't want you to overfiddle any of your artwork, so I add a pinch of my leftover violet to my blue. I will just start adding the bluebells. Now, if you don't feel comfortable with this knife, then this is the time when you could pick up some of your colors. You could pick it up with a shorter edge knife, such as this. And you see I have a bit of a blob on just the shorter edge, and I can place it there. And it will be those specific blobs that should remind the viewer of bluebells. Or you can just carry on. If you're comfortable working with your existing knife, then you just make sure that you use the very tip. That's it. Yeah. Now, a lighter violet mixed in with your existing blue, adding variety to your bluebells. Because some of those bluebells will be sunlit, so you don't want them to have one single color. It should be a bit more nuanced than that. Okay. And another thing, if your purple is not strong enough, then so you could introduce the ultramarine, which is a slightly different blue. Well, vastly different blue. I mean, look at that. You see that is a lot more of a cyan or cerulean blue type, especially with that. It already has a bit of white in it, and this is my ultramarine. So if I start adding my ultramarine, then it all of a sudden makes sense. It begins to look like a totally different color from the sky, which is what you want. You don't want to mix it up with the sky color. You want to have a bit of a specific color, something that looks like the bluebells. And the bluebells have a bit of a purpley hint to them. So any blue, you could be using a cobalt blue, or you could just mix up your ultramarine with a bit of white and have that on top of everything. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. It does have a bit of a connection with my original blue that I was working with. Let's have a bit of a dark violet here for the shadowy side of the trees. Let me see if I'm going to develop further any one of my trees. I might have a bit over there. You could add a couple of these marks that look like it could be, you are almost enticing the viewer to run ahead and do something with that hint that you gave them. So you are hinting at different parts of the forest. You are introducing thoughts, branches, patterns, and you let them finish it. And this is when I can start dabbing on the wild garlic. If you add a couple of dabs of this white up close, people will make sense of a white line further away as a field of wild garlics. Okay, so that's just something for you to keep in mind if you want to have. You add a few patterns up front, and then it makes sense. It comes together for the viewer a little bit further away. Okay. And then I go back for a bit more yellow, lighter, and add second layer of sunlit patches. And then a bit of that green mixed up with more white, and I have the type of light green that I wanted to place in the distance as well as the foreground here. So I think I'm happy with what I see here. I'm going to pick up a bit of my deeper red here and see if any of it will make sense on... It's a bit of, yeah, it dried on the palette, but I'm going to add a few of these clumps simply because this is the color of any of these still dead branches as they slowly come alive. Yeah, and I think that's it. Compare it to my study, which was a very quick one on the spot. Maybe in a second layer I might come back to it and add a few of these grasses. I'm not sure if it might be a distraction, it might be too much, or it might just add a bit of a balance to these whites on the left hand side. I'm gonna come back to it. Okay, so that's it. This is the first layer. This is where I stop and ponder and come back to it with fresh eyes. Okay, second layer. I'm going to change two of my colors. So previously I was working with alizarin crimson. That was from Dale Roney's Kryla, which is the artist's color. Cadmium yellow deep from Pebeo's studio range. Vallejo artist's color azure or cyan. But this one had a bit of white in it. Now I will be working, because this is a spring scene, okay? So you can see that it has, you know, there are these very, very yellowy, vibrant yellow greens that are so typical of a spring scene when it's sunlit. And I'm just really eager to paint them in. And also these big sweeps of bluebells are significantly lighter than that initial layer that I had with first with the cyan, and then I added a bit, I started including my ultramarine. Now what I will do is I will go back over that with a bit more ultramarine, and I will show you how to add a second layer using the textured marks that have caked onto your painting and create those broken colors, those gorgeous layers and layers of Impressionist colors that make an artwork, a landscape, very interesting to watch up close as well as further away. Okay. I'm using the same palette. It has sort of caked on, but never mind. That's not going to be an issue. That's my crimson. For blue, I will be using what I started using in the first layer, ultramarine. Lemon yellow. It's a crazy lemon yellow. And I will show you what the three colors look like if you add them on a paper. Now, here is my yellow. That's my red. And with the third finger, I'm going to paint the blue in here. Now, I begin looking at my greens first, because that was my pain point. That was the part that I really wanted to fix. And I also want to know what types of deep turquoises I can do. And to tell you the truth, I'm quite happy with these. Okay, now I go on to my violets, and that's a very nice dark color scheme. Also, if I add some of my white here, then I will have a better idea of what are the types of lighter purples as well as lighter blues that I can add. I love that. I will create these oranges. They're not as bold as the oranges that I had previously, and if I add my white to that, then I can see these lovely peachy colors that are very nice. A bit of a white for the greens, so I have a better idea of what my lighter greens would look like, and I like that. So these are the colors that I can work on top of my previous set of colors. So you can see it's a very different set of a color wheel, and that was my first layer. I got that far with it, and now I'm going to work on top of that with these colors that I see here. I'm going to correct a few colors, and these warm yellows here, for example, they are completely missing because I was not working with the appropriate yellow and blue. So that's a nice buttery, almost lime. That's a lime yellow, and I'm going to add that. If I pick up a little bit of this cool lemon yellow and I start scraping it, and also I will be adding the same in the back there. As for my blue, now that is a lot closer to what sunlit bluebells look like. And I think it's coming to life. Just adding some color to some of the tree trunks that looked a little bit too dark. What I want to do is sort of lose the viewer in that corner. I don't want them to follow this big tree trunk off the edge. And now coming back to some of my light greens. These are almost like a nice light turquoise color. Now some of that color will need to come back. And yeah, I think that's it. So you want to have a couple of these blues, a bit of the white again. I'm trying to place the white dots where there is a bit of a dark behind it. Let me see if anything else here needs adjustment. There you go. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this. So all of a sudden, I have a second layer of colors, different greens, a bit of a shadowy side to all the sunlit clumps with cooler colors. And so I'm just adjusting a few bits here and there. Not making a lot of changes. Character of a sunlit scene in a main way. Okay, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. And let me know how you are getting on. Chances are that your bluebell painting will be vastly different from mine. Keep in mind that you are probably using a different set of colors, yellow, blue, and red. And also you will be using probably a different knife and handling it also differently. So it does take a couple of paintings, quite a few painting sessions to get used to working with a knife. It's not rocket science, you can do it. Just don't give up. If it doesn't behave the way you want it to, make sure you keep at it and you learn how those marks come to be. How you can create what type of marks from the 3 colors that you choose and based on a study. Hope you enjoyed it. Go back and paint along and don't forget to subscribe.